Okay, so now that we successfully installed Elasticsearch and Kibana, let's take a look at what is inside the Elasticsearch and Kibana. So, first of all, as you can see, there's a bin directory which has a handful of executable files, mainly Elasticsearch itself. So, when we type out bin Elasticsearch in our terminal, we are actually trying to execute this file. But aside from that, the most important uh, directory is our config, and inside of that, the elasticsearch.yml. I can assure you, for the purpose of this tutorial and for you guys that are pretty amateur in Elasticsearch, the most important file is this, and even myself, even I don't use other files, don't tweak or change other options and settings in Elasticsearch and even Kibana. So anyway, in the elasticsearch.yml, there are a couple of things that worth noticing. First of all is the cluster. So we are going to define cluster and node in the couple of next episode, so don't worry about that. But for the cluster name, you can simply uncomment this and put your respective cluster name in here. So if you don't, the cluster name, the default cluster name will be Elasticsearch, as we will see in the next episodes. And it goes for the nodes as well. So there is the node name, which is going to be anything you want if you uncomment this, and if you don't, the default node name will be Elasticsearch as well. The next important thing that I suggest you take a look at and change in the future is the paths. So there are two paths. One for the data, which is going to be your path to your docs and indices and everything. But in this case, data is being saved under the data directory under the Elasticsearch. So if you want to update Elasticsearch or do anything or accidentally delete the Elasticsearch folder altogether, you will lose your data. So I suggest you tweak this one and put some path that you would like your data to be there. And the next one is the log files. So there are log files under the Elasticsearch itself. So if you open elasticsearch.log, for instance, you can see some logs being created based on what we did or will do. And this is also under the Elasticsearch folder. So my suggestion is to change that as well. And the next important thing, we don't tweak or change anything about the memory, but the network is pretty interesting as well. So the base network host, which is right here, and you can change the IP, and this is for security reasons maybe in the future, and of course the port. So Elasticsearch is running on the 9200 port, so you can simply change that as well. That's pretty much it. You can take a look at Jvm Options as well. Jvm is abbreviated for Java Virtual Machine. So as you already know, Elasticsearch is running on top of Java, and Elasticsearch is obviously using some memories of your machine. Here, under the heap size or memory size for that matter, you can change the base memory, for instance, to 4 gigabytes. But basically, Elasticsearch is using around 1 gigabyte of your memory or your RAM on your laptop. But here's an option to change that as well. Although I don't think you will need anytime soon. Okay, so respectively, Kibana has some configs as well, not as complicated as Elasticsearch, but it has some. So first of all, the The port which Kibana is running is 5601, so you can change that as you could with Elasticsearch port. And the host is obviously localhost, so that is to be changed as well. But the next important thing is the Elasticsearch itself. So if you in here change the Elasticsearch port or host, you should change Elasticsearch address or host in here as well. Otherwise, the Kibana will break, because as you may already know, Kibana is running on top of Elasticsearch and not running independently. And there are some other settings which I don't think you will need to change anytime soon. But for instance, the request timeout for Elasticsearch is the 30,000 milliseconds. You can change it as well. Here's the time. And other things is the path which logs of Kibana will be saved, and other things as well. But practically, yeah, the Kibana has data and logs as well, so you may need to change that path in Kibana as well. So yeah, this is pretty much it. Other things are available, but not as important as the config file in Elasticsearch. For instance, you can install any kind of plugins in here when you get the plugins under this one, and the libraries as well, which we are going to use some of them in the near future. And yeah, this is it. So you can simply try to change some ports or some paths in Elasticsearch, so you can see the changing. We are not going to do that because the base setup or default setup of Elasticsearch is good for us and good for this tutorial.